Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Tony Gold. This is another episode of our post-match shows. It's the post-match show. Fulham's 3-1 defeat to Everton. Extremely disappointing loss, Tony, and it actually probably knocks Fulham out of Europe. I know that there are some that think that there's a chance. I really doubt that highly. We'll talk about that during the show. Extremely disappointing loss. And we'll go through it for probably the next 45 minutes. And we have several talking points that we'll go through. Well, I think we'll focus more on that than the actual match itself, because if we go through the match, I think I might get sick talking about the disappointment and going through the moments, because the moments are upsetting. Over a season, Tony, that it's funny. We did a show, the Box of Chocolates season. It continues to happen. I'll just go to you. Give me your opening thoughts. You were there at Craven Cottage. I know how disappointed you were. Try to put this into words.
It's been our season, Russ. Really, I mean, there aren't any words to sort of sum it up. It's the inconsistency has been there for months and months and months. The critical issues that Fulham are struggling with at the moment have not been addressed by Marco Silva, and that's on him. And ultimately, I think that's a wider discussion really about, what his skill set is as a manager and where Fulham want to be sort of moving forward. We all love Marco Silva. He's done a great job. He's been very consistent in terms of, making sure that Fulham stay in the Premier League and have been, more than competitive. But I think now, in order for us to push on, we've got to see a turn in events somewhere along the line. And as I said, that's going into much more depth and detail about him, his backroom staff, the players, the depth of the squad, etc., etc. So, I wasn't surprised on Saturday, to be perfectly honest. Unfortunately, that kind of performance is always there in the background. And, Fulham will be kicking themselves, Russ. They will be kicking themselves after that.
Absolutely, Tony. And listen, the good thing about doing this show is that we can really dive into the issues of the season, the positives and the negatives. Like I said, we already did a Box of Chocolates show, but I want to go into even more depth about the coaching staff, about the players, the age of the players, the fact that Fulham don't seem to bring in young players at a rate that they should be bringing in. We're going to be talking about a couple players that made a cameo and how that actually is a little bit annoying that they made a cameo in the role that they did. We'll talk about that. There's a lot to get to. Once the season's over, we can really unpack that and really spend some time with that. But if we're just looking at the match itself, extremely disappointing, because I think this was the nail in the coffin for Europe. I'm an optimist. I don't know why I was thinking that this would be any different than the rest of the season, but it's playing out the way it has the entire season. This is who they are. And I think I need to accept this is who they are. I want them to be something that they're not. They are this team, very inconsistent, can pull off the wonderful victory, but when the pressure is on, when they are expected to win, Tony, it doesn't seem to happen. And that's really my number one takeaway out of this match, is that there's a lot of pressure on this match. When the pressure's not on them, they pull off these incredible victories. But when it's on them, something seems to happen. And that's something that is, I think, more, like I said, when we get to after the season, we can really dive into why that is happening. But it's really the season in itself. They are great when they are not the favorite, and they're not so great when they are the favorite. And that, to me, is just something that I think we're going to need more time to really figure out exactly why. But let's get to my section I call Cottage Talk Talking Points, and I have several of them that we're going to go through. Let's start with the first one. And I think this pretty much really encapsulates a lot of Fulham season, Tony, because they've dropped so many points from winning positions. So many points. This is going to be part of the downfall. We could talk about the defense in general, not scoring enough goals, all that. But this is a factor too. Missed opportunities to build on the lead cost Fulham. They're up 1-0, and they had few really good opportunities to build on that. When you are up on a team like Everton, you have a chance to really bury them. And I want to give Everton credit. Before we go on any further, I've become friends with a bunch of Everton supporters. Congratulations on the victory. And I'll give you your due. You deserved the victory because you did what you had to win the match. Let's get that out of the way. But this is really going to be concentrating on what Fulham didn't do, Tony. You're up 1-0, and you have a chance to really put your foot on the throat. I know that's a bad term of Everton if you score that second goal, to really just put the pressure on them. And they didn't do it. They tried. And then I think what happens after that is a little bit predictable. For me, this is a huge talking point coming out of this match.
Absolutely. Yep. 100%. And I think that ultimately, with all the science behind football and statistics and everything that everybody wants to delve into, at the end of the day, in its simplistic form, it's goals that win football matches. End of story, right? Goals win football matches. Clean sheets make sure you don't lose. And ultimately, Fulham had, after working so hard to get the lead, and deservedly so as well at the time. Hi, Colm. We had, I would say, several really good opportunities to double that lead. To be fair, Pickford's made a world-class save down to his left-hand side to tip round the post, which was a good save. But we've had some half chances and some opportunities, and in those moments when we're on top against teams and games, we haven't been clinical. We've been too nice, we've been too soft.
Exactly.
We've allowed
Where's the urgency?
Absolutely.
The urgency.
Absolutely. And ultimately, because of Fulham's frailties defensively, that at some point in the game that an opposition is going to get an opportunity and they are going to take it. And unfortunately for Fulham, that opportunity on Saturday came in the 48th minute, which was a killer just before half-time, because that changes everything in terms of Marco Silva's team talk, the players' mentality. And unfortunately, Russ, 28 points from winning positions that we've dropped this season. 28 points. And if you just take even half of that, if you take half of those points and Fulham have them, right, we're sitting in a Champions League place going into the last two games. So it's unfortunately all ifs, buts and maybes. And it's an area that Marco Silva has to address and he has to improve on, Russ. He has to. Simple.
Totally agree, Tony, because I think part of this, like you said, you got to give Pickford credit, right? We'll give him credit. Obviously, these are good saves by Pickford. But when you're on top, it almost becomes, like I said, that's why I might have used a pretty vicious term, but I said putting the throat on the opponent. That's kind of how we talk about, when you're on top, where you put your foot on the gas might be a better way. You got to go for it. You got to get that second goal. You have this opportunity to really do a number on Everton, and you need to get that second goal. And when you don't, you leave yourself open to things that happen like we're seeing here. If they get the second goal, I know it's revisionist history. Maybe things are different, right? I think that they might have been, but we'll never know because this happens over and over again. That's why that's my first talking point, because I think it's a glaring problem. Why can they not, when they're in the ascendancy, put more pressure on the opponent? And I got that you said this. Maybe they're just too nice, Tony. Maybe they're not going for the kill the way that we're talking about. That's why I use that analogy. You have to go for the kill. When you're up, go for the kill. Give yourself some breathing space. And they didn't do that. Like I said, you can give some credit to the goalkeeper, but I put the onus on Fulham to get that second goal. And they didn't leave themselves open to what happened after that. And that's why I wanted to start by talking about that. The next one, we're going to have a little bit of fun with. So let's get to it. Tony, what is the definition of insanity? Now, what's interesting here is that I actually looked all this up this morning because there's a famous saying, the definition of insanity, that I believe was referenced by Einstein, but there's no proof that Einstein actually said it. But I'm still going to bring it up because we all talk about the definition of insanity. Again, is doing something over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, let's talk about zonal marking. Let's talk about this, Tony. They continue to do this, and they continue to give up goals from corners, set pieces, and it's from zonal marking. So let's get into it right now. Why do you think they continue to do this?
It's neglect ultimately, and I'm sorry, but it's on Marco Silva and his backroom staff. Do you know how many backroom staff Marco Silva has, Russ? He's got 11 coaches or assistant managers or head of performance or head match analysts sitting on the bench. 11, right? Now, I understand that Antonius Lemonakis is responsible for our dead ball and set pieces, right?
Right.
What is that guy doing week in, week out? What is he doing? Because if you've watched the games like we have as supporters and see that zonal marking, our players simply cannot do it. They are not good enough to zonal mark. None of them take responsibility, right? Not one of them. We haven't got a leader in the back there that sets that up correctly, and we keep conceding goal after goal. What analyst decides that it's a good idea to keep Pereira on corners and free kicks all season? All season.
Yeah.
One of the biggest fundamental issues, Russ, on top of everything, is that unless Raul, Muniz, or Iwobi have chipped in with goals here and there, none of our midfield players score goals.
That's
right?
true.
Sander Berger, 0. Sasha Lukic, 0.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Who else is there? Pereira, 2. Smith Rowe has scored 6 goals this season, and he's played less games than anyone, right?
I know.
William,
Yep.
0. Robinson, 0. Tete, 0. Right? Anderson and Bassi, 1 goal between them. 1 goal between them. And they go up for set pieces. They go up for corners. So what's it telling you? Right? Get rid of these stupid analysts who do bugger all. Right? I mean, it's an absolute joke. They're getting paid. It's a joke. And get someone in there that actually knows what they're doing and how to set us up. Stuart Gray, he's done. He's got to move on. We need a new, fresh ideas coming in, working with Marco Silva, right, to start working on set pieces, to start working on defending set pieces and doing it properly, man for man. It's always been the way. It's the best way to mark. And then everyone's got a responsibility and everyone knows their job.
No, I hear you. And there's speculation that Stuart Gray might be retiring. So we'll see how that all plays out after the season's over. But whatever they're doing, whatever the analysis is, at some point you have to look at this. Goes back to the definition of insanity, Tony. If it continues to fail, why aren't you trying something different? Why does it looks the exact same? It doesn't look any different. You're still expecting the result to be different. And I'm glad that you brought up the thing with Pereira with set pieces, right? You're expecting things to be different, but he continues to take it. I will say, I think Harry Wilson took at least one on Saturday, which
they mixed it up. But also, Russ, sorry to interject.
Yeah, go ahead.
Also got a head of performance. Bruno Mendes is head of performance.
That's right.
What is that? What's head of performance? So if you're head of performance and you're seeing Pereira week in and week out failing to beat the first man, surely you must be turning around to him during the week at training and saying, do you know what? It ain't working. You're not taking any more. And we've had this discussion how many times this season? How many times have we had this discussion about set pieces, zonal marking? And yet, like you say, the definition of insanity. No, I'll tell you what, let's keep on doing it. Let's keep on trying it. Let's keep on going. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm sorry, that is on Marco Silva. It's on Marco Silva.
Yeah, I hear you. It's funny. I got shows from Chris. Chris, I'm with you. If they would hire Tony, I'd be all for that. I think that would be an improvement to Fulham Football Club. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. Let's see. I'm just going to share this. Under 21 have got it right. Let's see. This is from Alan. He says, even without Andreas on the pitch, others take set pieces with no real change in outcomes. That's a good point from Alan. It still is the same thing, Tony.
He's right, Alan. But the thing is, they get the instructions right from the chief. So when the game's finished and they've got the whole week from Monday to the following Saturday, and our chief analyst Mark Edwards sits down with his first team match analyst Antonius, what are they analysing? What are they analysing? Because you and I and everyone watching and all the supporters who watched the game on Saturday are watching the same thing. And you can clearly see, as we did the week before and the week before that, when we set up zonally, it's a disaster waiting to happen. Disaster, right? So what are they analysing? Oh, well, we've conceded 7, 8, 9 goals from set. So I'll tell you what, let's keep doing it because we might get it right one week and it might pay off. It's madness. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all on any level. And it's something that needs to be addressed. And for some reason, it's not. And I don't know why.
Yeah, listen, this goes back to thinking that it's going to change when it never changes, Tony. You just keep on doing it. You just keep on doing it. But like we're also talking about, Marco is slow to change, right? And I just want to state this right now while we're doing the show. I've already seen and people have contacted me about people wanting Marco out. I'm going to say it right now. Marco, I want the coach for Fulham Football Club for years to come. But it doesn't mean we can't criticize him, Tony. We can criticize him because we want Marco to be better. I think it's okay to criticize the manager and want him to be the manager.
Chris makes a very good point there, right? We are very poor defensively. And that has been one of the critical issues this season. No one wants Marco Silva. Any sane Fulham fan does not want Marco Silva out of this football club, right? Absolutely not. What Marco Silva needs to do is to learn from this season, learn from the mistakes, learn from the deficiencies of his players, and he has to rectify it because that's what good managers do, Russ.
Right.
That's what's going to take Marco Silva from being a good manager to potentially a great manager. But he's never going to make that great status if he continues to be sort of, I don't know, whether it's I don't know if it's arrogance, but you've got to change something. You've got to, because it's clearly affected us this season, right?
Yep.
We're 36 games into the season, right? And we're sitting 11th. And we're all going to be sitting here at the end of saying what could have been, what should have been, and it isn't, right?
Right.
So we need to make sure that Marco Silva needs to make sure that next season he addresses these issues and also that he gets the backing that he needs to bring in the right players and the right personnel to do what he's asking to do, because at the moment, clearly, it's not working.
No, it's not working, Tony. And that's why I think we're doing this the way we're doing it today, because what's frustrating watching back the match and really looking at it, Fulham, I'm not going to say should have won the match because they didn't deserve to win it. But when they had their opportunity to win the match, this was a must-win match, Tony. And you had a chance to really take control, and they ended up blowing it. And there's no other way to put it. But again, if you're adding to it with some of the issues that you're having defensively, okay, and we're going to go through it. But I think it was fair to start the show by talking about the missed opportunities and follow that up by talking about the definition of insanity, because I think it is insane that we keep doing the same thing over and over again, and the result's the same. It's the same. It is failing. They're analyzing these matches. I'm sure they're doing it each and every week after the matches, but we keep doing the same thing. We absolutely just keep doing the same thing, and that's insane to me. All right, let's move on. This one I think I know the answer to, but I'm going to ask you anyways. I'm going to ask you about both players. Did Fulham miss Jedi and Lukic? One or the other or neither?
It's hard to say, Russ, because to be honest with you, in the first sort of 40 minutes of the game, you'd have to say no, because Fulham was so in control and so on top. And actually, I'm thinking getting to half time 1-0, okay, we've missed a couple of chances. Second half, I could see us scoring two or three more goals the way the game was going. But the sucker punch obviously came with Everton's equaliser just before the interval, as we've already said. But I don't think, I thought Sessegnon was more than, excellent at left back. I think you could say that we miss Lukic's bite in there a little bit and his work energy and stuff like that. But to be fair, it seemed to be okay with Pereira and Berg in there, at that particular time. So I can't say that, just because we lost the game now that we missed them. Obviously, when you go back over the 90 minutes and then you look at the 3-1, would Jedi and Lukic have made a difference over the 90 minutes? Maybe. But look, second half, Fulham shriveled up like a violet. Just completely went. And they completely lost their bravery, their heart, and it just fell apart. And that was what has been very worrying over the last few games that we've been watching, is that we've just capitulated in the manner that we've capitulated. And so ultimately, that's something, again, that is at the end of season, catching up with certain players because they've been flogged over the season. Who knows? But ultimately, I don't think we missed them.
Okay. And going off on what you just said, because we're trying to really nail down exactly why they keep dropping points from winning positions when they're on top. They seem to let the team back in. And as we saw, once they get a sucker punch at the end of the first half, they don't have an answer in the second half. Is this a lack of leadership on the pitch? Is that a factor in here?
It's a lack of leadership, and it's also poor defending. And I'm not pointing out the back four, necessarily. I'm talking about collectively defending without the ball. In terms of, we're playing two holding midfield players that should be protecting our back four at times, right? It's all too easy, Russ. The manner in the goals that we concede have been all too easy. Hence why we've had 5 clean sheets all season, because the goals that we give up and the goals that we've been conceding just haven't been good enough from a defensive point of view, out of possession of the ball. And every single player, from Raul Jimenez up front all the way through, is responsible, because we defend from the front. Obviously, it's the back four's responsibility to try and make sure that that the goals don't go in. But again, at times, Bassey and Anderson are so slow to react,
right?
So slow to close the ball down at times. We give players too much time, too much room. The fullbacks don't get in quick enough. There's so much that needs to be addressed, and it just hasn't. So you've got to ask yourself, are those players the right players? Are they good enough at this level? Are they good enough to take this team or club to European football? Those are the questions that should be asked.
I agree with all that, Tony. One other question while we do this, then we'll move on to one final talking point. This is from Colm. This is a good point because I've been giving this a lot of thought. There are a few that look like they are carrying injuries, trying to get through to the end of the season. Is it possible, and again, we've been talking about, we found out about Castagna. We know about Jedi. I have a theory, and I could be dead wrong on this. I don't know. Maybe we'll learn after the season. Iwobi, because Iwobi's play has dropped. Could Iwobi be just trying to get through the end of the season? I don't know. But could some more of these players be dealing with injuries that they're just trying to get through the season?
Yeah, Colm is absolutely, they could be, because the club haven't been transparent with supporters in terms of what players are going through or what they're struggling. But again, Russ, we've got a squad, right? And also we've got some very talented under 21 players that have been playing all season. We shouldn't have had to drag players through the season when you've got the likes of Cuenca, who's hardly played this season, right? What was the point of, signing him and bringing him in if you weren't going to, use him? We've had Josh King, Godo as two, players, young players, hungry, need the experience, need the opportunities to go and play at this level, to grow, to develop. They haven't been used. They haven't been used. So, you know what? Yeah, no surprise that certain players have been dragged through 36 games and haven't had a chance to get a breather and whatever. And obviously we had the fortunate injury to Reece Nelson, which didn't
Yep.
help, and then Harry Wilson
Right.
as well, which didn't help. But look, we've discussed this many times. Is that we've lost key players at key times. Our squad depth hasn't been anywhere near where it needs to be,
Right.
and ultimately, it's caught up with us one way or another. It's caught up with us.
Right. Okay. Totally agree. And that's going to lead to the final talking point, Tony. And I've got some comments that are actually going to be nicely part of this section. Here it is. Let me get to it. Here we go. So, what is the purpose of bringing on Godot and King so late, Tony? So, before I get your answer on that, I'm going to share some comments because I don't understand if you're going to play them, why you playing them in that situation. So this is from Ben Lawrence. He says, playing injured players is a bad decision. We have under 21 squad we could bring in to cover. Totally agree with that. Steve Reynolds has been saying it all year. King, Gatto, and Taunton, etc. So let's get to it. Why do you bring these players on so late? Why are you not playing them earlier, Tony? Throughout the season, I've heard the argument that they're trying to protect Josh King. Well, play him. I mean, he's playing under 21 football. He's shown you the ability. What are you protecting him from? He's got to learn. Same thing with Goddo. Why are you playing him when it's what we'd say over here? It was garbage time. Why are you putting him, these two players in for garbage time?
All those gents make absolutely spot on points. And you know what? If I could get Marco Silva on the phone, ask him, I'd ring him and ask him why has he underused our developing talent this season? And you know what? You can hide behind the nonsense that they're developing, they're not ready, this blah 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 blah. Right? Arsenal have done it this season. Liverpool have done it this season. Forest have done it this season. So many teams have brought through young players and got them involved, got them on the bench, and have kept them involved and given them opportunities. We haven't. We simply haven't. Tanton, Godo, and King are the three main ones. Obviously, Osmond, another one potentially.
Luke de Figueroas.
Well, yeah, but I think he's been
injured a lot.
Yeah, but another one, absolutely. Who we were talking about last year that should have been involved, and he's missed a whole season this year of not playing at all in the first team. So look, I don't know, Russ. It's very frustrating because ultimately, I want to see these young lads coming through because they are the future of the football club. Right. I don't want us to go into the summer transfer window now, right, and sign Jose Mawegi from Spain or, Pinkas Regini from wherever, with players that we've never heard of, like we did with Cuenca, who's just going to come along, sit on the bench, play 3 or 4 games, is tired on the ball, but doesn't give you much else. I want to see these young players coming through and given the opportunity and getting 25 minutes and getting half an hour. And Fulham was safe, months and months ago.
Right.
So there's no pressure on playing young players and giving them a chance. And the fans would love it. The fans want to see these kids. Of
course they do.
Play. Obviously not all at once, but, you telling me that Josh King hasn't got 25 minutes in him every week to come off the bench?
Of course he does.
Absolutely. So, look, that's something that needs to change moving forward. Absolutely. Because I don't want to see another 36-year-old William being signed in January. I don't want to see it. I'm not interested.
Again, revisionist history, but I think it's fair to look back at. I think the Reece Nelson injury, Tony, was unfortunate because I think Reece Nelson was giving Fulham something that hurt. But instead of really bringing in a player that could replace Reece Nelson, nothing against Willian, they went with Willian. I think they tried to bring in a winger, but just not good enough to bring in Willian as the player to replace Reece Nelson. Reece Nelson really was something that gave you a different option, a speedy winger that really gave teams trouble. Finishing wasn't the greatest, but you know what? I'd be interested in bringing him back and signing him permanently next season if the price is right. I'll say that right now. I've seen enough from Reece Nelson. You and I talked about that. I would bring him back. But again, They left themselves with very little options, and they bring William back. I'm not sure if Marcel Godot is going to be a Premier League player, but give him a shot. Give him a legitimate shot. Same thing with King to see, throw him in the deep end and see if they can swim. But instead, we get garbage time. This is garbage. It's garbage to play these kids so late. It really is. It's not fair to them. It's certainly not fair, and it doesn't help their development by putting them in for 9+ minutes. It's crap, and I was very upset when I'm seeing that. And yes, you could say they played well. It's not on them. It's on Marco and his staff. Why are you doing that? That's a crap move. Sorry, I'm very vocal when it comes to stuff like that because it does nothing. It does nothing. It doesn't help you win, and it really doesn't do much to the players because the players are in a situation where they really can't affect the game. You're just throwing them out there, Tony. That to me is just disappointing. Anyways, one final topic. I think I said the final topic was already there. I got one final one, and as I said, the nail is in the coffin. A place in Europe is gone. It's gone, Tony. I know mathematically not, but I'm going to look back at that Everton match and say this is where it was totally gone. Maybe it was gone before that. Maybe it was gone after the Chelsea match, right? But this is when it's completely gone. I know you probably agree with me on this.
Yeah, I mean, look, nothing, whilst it's mathematically still available, look, if Fulham turn up on Saturday, beat Brentford, and there's a chance that Brighton and Bournemouth draw or drop points, then it goes to the last game of the season. But obviously we've got Manchester City at home. So yeah, look, I would tend to agree, Russ, unless by some miracle now it's gone. But it didn't go on Saturday is the honest truth. You know, for me, the telling point was a few months ago when we just went on this win, lose, sort of run. And for me, the game that it went for me was the Bournemouth away game that we lost 1-0. That's when for me I thought the team that was
a minute in.
Yeah, they blew
a minute into that effing match, Tony.
Correct. And then you can look back over the course of the season again over the 28 points that we've dropped here, there, and everywhere, and look at that game and look at that game and look at that game. But look, ultimately, we are just above a mid-table side. Realistically, that is our MO.
That's who they are.
That's who we are. That is where we're at. And as I said, throughout a season with Fulham, they've always got the capabilities of causing an upset. And if they turn it on, like they did against Liverpool, like they did against Chelsea, like they did against Newcastle, Forest, etc., they've got that in them. They haven't got it in them to be consistent. Exactly, Chris. 100%. Too inconsistent. And that's why Liverpool have won the league. And that's why we are where we are. But having said that, Russ, and here's a question for you and everyone listening.
Yep.
Tottenham, 17th. Manchester United, 16th. Both teams are in for a trophy. And one of them is not only going to win a trophy, but is going to get Champions League football.
Okay, that is irritating beyond belief.
Right. Would you swap places with them now? Because I know I would.
I would totally switch places with them. Listen, we could make the argument back when Fulham had their great Europa League run, got to the final, and I think they ended 12th that season. And I was disappointed that they ended 12th. If I remember correctly, people might be able to check that up. I believe it was 12th the season we got to the Europa League final. And everyone said, because I was disappointed in their league positions, like, listen, the trade-off is, wouldn't it be great if you win? And that's the trade-off. So to your point, I would take 16th and 17th if Fulham won the Europa League. Yes, Tony.
Absolutely. And Tottenham are going to finish 17th, Russ. 17th. This is the wonderful.
I have to share this. This is funny. This is funny.
If only, Chris. If only. That's going to be painful watching that game. Watching one of those teams lift that trophy this season and have Champions League football next year. Oh. I mean, it's just a joke. It's an absolute joke, that's unfortunately, it's going to be, looking back at the end of the season, it's going to be what could have been,
Right. Totally, Tony. All right. Real quick before we go to the second half of the show, thoughts on the starting 11?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously with Jedi and Lukic past, not fit. I was pleased to see Smith Rowe back in the side.
Played well.
I think it's imperative that he stays in the team now till the end of the season, plays those 2 games out, and then obviously they review it. But yeah, look, wasn't surprised to see Pereira back in. To be honest, the back four is the back four.
Yep.
Obviously, Cess is a natural replacement for Robinson, and Wilson's obviously been getting a run. So yeah, I think the starting 11 was pretty much as everyone sort of expected, given those 2 that weren't available.
Yeah, I was disappointed, obviously, but we made the discussion. I mean, disappointed that Jedi didn't play, but I've also been the one to say maybe you should just have him sit this one out for the rest of the season. The reason why I'm disappointed in a weird way is because I like Cess out on the wing, but obviously he can still do a very good job as a left back and something to think about moving forward for next season. But again, that's for after the season ends. Okay. Coming up next, Tony and I are going to quickly look back at both of these halves, and we'll end with a discussion. Should we give a full man of the match? All right, Tony, let's get to it. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but there are some key moments to talk about. And what's interesting here, like I said, I think the mentality was right coming out of the box in the first half. I think Fulham came out strong. And I think that they really had the mentality right and that they were going to push hard to win this match. And they looked good in the beginning stages of this match. And let's stop here. Let's talk about Fulham's goal, because the one thing that I noticed watching the match, you've already mentioned it, Emile Smith-Rowe. I thought I saw a different Emile Smith-Rowe. Was it the opponent? I don't know, but he looked like a player that was in a lot of places at the right time and also was doing some of the defensive duties as well. I mean, he was really on it. And I know that's going to bother a few people that we say some nice things about Emile Smith-Rowe. But he was involved in the first goal, Tony. I want to get your thoughts on the goal. Great header from Raul Jimenez and a great setup from Emile Smith-Rowe.
Yeah, it was a good move. The difference on Saturday for Smith-Rowe is that we were getting him into positions and then getting him the ball where he could be effective. That was one of the big differences and changes. And that's why you saw a different Smith-Rowe. He's very cute off the ball and he does make runs in behind, but we never get him the ball. We never get him the ball when he makes that. So it always looks like he's making, blind runs or running into channels where he's not affecting the game and what have you. But he's a clever player and we've got to play to his strengths. And on Saturday we did that.
Yeah.
In a lot of a lot of moments. And look, the goal was a great goal and it was fully deserved at that time. Good ball into Smith-Rowe, good delivery, and a great header, from Morale. Really good. He was very aggressive at that moment. And, as Alan says, if you get him the ball in the box, he's going to cause teams problems because he's a good player in that area. So we did all the right things and deservedly took the lead.
Yeah. And that to me was like, a really good point in the match. You're up 1-0. This is what I'm going to talk about next. We've already talked about it on talking points, but I have to talk about it again because you have more than a few opportunities to score and get that second goal. I want to just mention, because I don't think Harry Wilson in the last match was back to himself yet. I think he was more like himself in this match. I thought he created some really good opportunities. And, Pickford was good in this match. He actually denied him a few times. But let's talk about the missed opportunities in that first half one more time, Tony, what you saw.
Yeah, look, you have to give Pickford credit, right? That's what he's there for. He's an England international goalkeeper for a reason. And he showed his qualities. He made some good saves. But, it's been another one of Fulham's issues this season is they haven't been clinical enough in moments, and when they're on top of games like they were Saturday, to score a second goal is critical actually. And like you said, we're too nice. We need to be much more aggressive. Like, when Raul attacked that ball to score the
Right.
first goal, that's what we need players to be, aggressive. They need to,
Throughout the first half, throughout the match,
absolutely.
actually. But
Yeah, 100%. And we just seem to be, too nice in those areas. And that's something, again, that is a mentality.
yep.
And that's something that needs to change.
Okay, very good. All right, let's move on. And unfortunately, Tony, we're going to talk about that goal from Everton, which I think changes everything, especially when it does. We know it does, okay? Because it gets in your head. It affects you. It affects everything that you have going into halftime. What Marco's going to say at halftime changes everything and changes the mentality of Everton. And like I said, I'm going to continue to give credit to Everton because they were hanging around. They were there and they made things happen when they needed to. So they deserve credit and they deserve to win the match. I don't care what anyone says. They deserve to win the match. But let's talk about this goal. Great timing by them. It is a deflection, but I want to get your thoughts, Tony. You probably had a good view of this.
Yeah, hugely frustrating because, as I said, it changes everything going in, to the break. I mean, Marco must have been tearing his hair out. He's got his halftime speech ready, right? Fulham are on top. He's going to obviously tell them at halftime, keep it tight, keep doing what you're doing. Next goal is going to be crucial. And then just as he's about to get out of his seat and walk to the dressing room, bang, wallop. Fulham are, the lead's gone and Everton are level. And yeah, look, it was a deflection. It was a little bit fortunate, but we've still got to defend that situation better, Russ. You've got to defend that better. And again, too nice defensively, not aggressive enough, closing the ball down, not getting there quick enough, not reacting quick enough. And, another poor goal.
Another poor goal, and it changes everything as we go in the second half. So now we're going to talk about the second half. And the one thing that I want to say, because the second half was, obviously it's going to end badly, very badly for Fulham Football Club. But I'm going to say it once again, we can call them, there was one really excellent opportunity. And again, Pickford comes up here. Harry Wilson was trying to do something similar, a little bit different, but similar to what he did against Brentford. And had a great opportunity. And if it wasn't for Pickford, this would be in the back of the net, Tony. This is early in the second half. Let's talk about missed opportunities once again.
Yeah, but again, they've come out solidly enough. And again, they've created opportunities. And once again, you want to get back in front. You've got to take those chances because at 1-1, Everton are still in the game. They've still got something to hang on to, and then I've got to credit David Moyes because actually he made two very critical substitutions for Everton when he brought on Dwight McNeil and Ndeye.
Yeah.
And those two players actually gave them a renewed energy and they made a big difference when they came on the pitch. And ultimately, as Fulham didn't take those opportunities, we get to that moment, which I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, let's not waste any more time. Let's get to, well, actually, before we do, I want to talk about the substitutions. Again, we talked about Godot and King coming on late. What did you make about Emile Smith-Rowe coming off?
I didn't understand it, Russ. I mean, he was our most productive player.
Again, what are we doing here? I hate to go there. What are we doing here? He's playing well. Why are you taking him off? It's similar to the Sessegnon one a few matches ago, Tony. What is going on?
Made no sense.
I love Marco, but some of the substitutions are puzzling.
Don't know. I mean, he's not the player I would have taken off. I would have taken Harry Wilson off and got Traore on if you're going to go like for like.
You go right, exactly.
I thought Smith-Rowe, as I said, was our most productive player. Everything good that was happening from us from an attacking point of view was going through him or happening because of him. And then as soon as he went off, we just lost all momentum in that area. We didn't create anything. We just went to absolute pot. So no, I'm baffled by that decision. And then obviously, we get to the corner.
Okay, let's get to it, Tony. And we're going to talk about our favorite player. We're going to talk about him. It is about zonal marking, okay? But our favorite player is involved in this. And he was not good at all in this match. We're going to talk about Andreas Pereira. Go back and watch this.
Terrible.
And if you just want to watch Pereira throughout this match, you're going to understand why he infuriates some like me and like you. This to me, if you watch him, he literally lets him go by. Lets him go by, and he's got his hands like this, like he can't believe it. Well, you're involved in this. Let's talk about this. But it is about zonal marking, but you watch a player go right by you. Let's talk about this goal.
Do you know what is so frustrating, Russ? Is you're watching it and you've got 6 players just marking space, thinking about the fairies, doing whatever, and Pereira just doesn't take any responsibility and is just happy for his man to get past him and just have a free header at the back post.
Free header. That was a completely free
Pereira
header.
Is a luxury player, and he's a luxury Fulham cannot afford. It's as simple as that. That's how I sum up Pereira. Right? Okay. Andreas Pereira is a luxury that Fulham cannot afford. And we have to move on from him next season. I'm sorry. If he's in a Fulham shirt next season, then you know what? We're going nowhere fast, is the honest truth. His movement, that goal was horrendous from a defensive point of view. And he should be embarrassed as a professional footballer allowing that situation to happen as it did. Embarrassing.
And it's funny because Steve says this, that is why we need a clear out in the summer. Steve, we're going to be talking about that. This isn't the show really to get into it. I'm not saying that you're wrong. You're probably right, but we will talk about this. And he's one of the players. And I'm just going to say that
he's got to go.
Well, Russ. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. A source has told me it is likely that he will go. And I actually, at this point, I hope that happens. Again, this is just speculation that I'm hearing that he could very well go this summer. And I think that would be the right thing for Pereira and the right thing for Fulham. I've had enough.
We could do a show on him, Russ. We could do thanks for the memories and the wonderful what set pieces? Did we ever score? Did he ever score a set piece for Fulham?
or ask the questions. How many times did Pereira hit the crossbar? Because there's I don't know, at least half a dozen, right? At least that. So Okay. Well, if that makes you upset, how about the third goal, Tony? The third goal. Now, listen, Leno has been fantastic the entire season. This is a howler, okay? This is terrible. But the fact that they scored so soon after they scored the second one, this is the true nail in the coffin for Europe because this is it. So let's talk about the third goal.
I put the bockers on Leno, didn't I? By giving him so much praise in the last show that we did. And then he does that. But look, to be fair, it was an absolute howler from Leno, 100%. But can someone explain to me what Joachim Andersen was doing? Was he walking in quicksand? The geezer's getting slower and slower by the week. I mean, honestly, he can't run any slower, can he? He is, honestly, he is shocking. Yeah. Absolutely shocking. And he is someone that we need to replace in the summer. We need to get in a solid, quick, decent centre-half to play alongside Bassi because I'm telling you now, he is getting exposed week in and week out. I couldn't care less about his 40-yard balls anymore. Honestly, most of them go out of play anyway. I'm done with it. Honestly, get rid. He's a £30 million write-off. Write him off.
Okay.
And get in a new centre-half. He is terrible.
Okay. And I'm going to put my hand up and say I got this one wrong because I was the one telling you, I really like them bringing in Anderson, and he's not been the answer. And if he's in the center back pairing next season, Fulham are in trouble. Let's just call it what it is. Fulham are in trouble.
We are in trouble.
We will be in trouble if he is in there because
Russ, he was part of a back four that got relegated from the Premier League under Scott Parker. He was
Julian, you're right. We need to try to find a buyer. You're right.
Yeah, we do, Julian, absolutely. But we're never going to get the money back for him, ever, not in a million years. But Fulham fans forget he was part of a back four that got relegated.
Yeah.
And he wasn't good enough then, and he's not good enough now. And Palace pulled our pants down, and they've had an absolute result, right? Listen, they've got to a cup final, Russ, having replaced the centre-half and brought in 3 quality centre-halves, and we've been left with cannon fodder.
Oh,
Joke.
What's driving me crazy about Crystal Palace, and I watched them play Tottenham, okay? What they're doing right now is phenomenal. You have to give Crystal Palace a lot of credit because Oliver Glasner has really built that team so well, and they play in the system that works so well for them. And I'm a little jealous. I'm jealous what I'm seeing from Crystal Palace. They're in a final, and they might win it the way that they're playing right now. I wouldn't bet against Crystal Palace right now. I know it's Man City, but I would not bet against Crystal Palace. All right. Enough talking about that. I don't want to talk about them because I'll get sick to my stomach talking about what could have been for Fulham. Let's end with, should we give man of the match?
Look, in the first half, you could say there was half a dozen players that were up for it. I mean, if you're going to give a player man of the match for me,
yep, who would you give it to?
The moment he came off, I have to give it to Smith Rowe. I thought he was our brightest, most productive player. As I say, a lot of good things were going through him, and I thought he was up there. But as I say, they took him off, and it all sort of fell apart from that point.
What did you make of Harry Wilson's performance?
Yeah, look, I think he's coming back to sharpness, getting his fitness back. With Harry Wilson, it's all about that sharpness and being ready. He's been out for a long time with that injury. And I think, as I said, the more he plays, the sharper he gets. So he'll get better. I thought he was good, but still not at the level that, he was before the injury.
Okay. And I think we both know how Pereira played, but we'll save that for the player rating show. We'll dive into that a little bit more because I think we have some good comments coming about that, and that's actually exclusive on the Cottage Talk Patreon page. All right, Tony. In a way, like I said, it's always therapeutic doing shows like this, but this one was extremely disappointing, and glad we're doing it now. I needed an extra day to really just relax from this because this one hurts, and I'll be the first to admit I don't do things to be right. I don't want Fulham to be seventh because I predicted seventh. But I also predicted it because I truly believed in this team. And the fact that they've been 8th, 9th, and 10th for the majority of the season, that's what's frustrating, that they're 11th. And guess what? They could end 12th very easily at this point because Crystal Palace are right there. So that's what's disappointing for me. My final thoughts is not just a missed opportunity in this game, a missed opportunity in this season.
100%, Russ. And I think once you take the emotion out of it and you take a step back from it, because at the end of the day, we'll be supporting this club through thick and thin. Kamel, he's a legend, isn't he? He's an absolute legend.
Yeah, he's in Cannes right now. He's in Cannes.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, that's a nice place to be right now. But yeah, look, ultimately, I think the players have let themselves down, Russ, is the honest truth. The players have let themselves down and they'll be hurting. I mean, they should be hurting, is the honest truth. They should be hurting. And, they will be disappointed because, at one point, certainly just after Christmas, it was looking really positive and, we were all on a high and it was going one way. And unfortunately, it's not to be. And as you say, it's in DNA. It's in our DNA. That's what Fulham are. And I always say, Russ, what's my favourite saying? It's the hope that kills you, right? Yeah. And that's basically our season. It's the hope that kills you. And I just hope and pray on Sunday that whatever happens at Brentford, whether we play poorly, whether we're absolutely shocking, that we just beat them. I don't care how we get the result. Because I couldn't stomach them beating us.
I agree, Tony.
Getting that final European place, that will be horrendous.
That will hurt, Tony. And that's what's also frustrating is that Brentford are ahead of us. And I want them very badly, just like you, to beat Brentford. And then if they beat Brentford, right, it would be so Fulhamish to then do something against Man City. Okay, but I'll take anything against Man City. Forget about that. Put that aside. For me, it's all about beating Brentford. Just beat Brentford. I'm there with you. All right. Well, it is time to wrap up the show. I just want to thank everyone who watched live with us and watches all the time. It's a show that I care deeply about. I've been doing this from 2011, and I have big plans for Cottage Talk moving forward. You'll be seeing them basically for next season, but I'll mention some things before the end of the season what we're planning on doing. But we have a lot planned because my commitment, and I could say, is that I want to bring the best talk on football that I could possibly give you on Fulham Football Club. The media do a crappy job of covering the team. And I talk to Tony about it all the time. And I try to set up a show differently than other shows do it. They do it one way. They do a great job. We have great talk on Fulham. I do it a little bit differently with Cottage Talk, and I hope you enjoy it. And that's how we're going to end the show. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. He's Tony Gold. I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, part of the TalkSport Fan Network.